Hi everybody, welcome to Woodfired Weekly at Manna from Devon Cooking School. This week we are going to be cooking Lasagna al Forno, a classic dish to be cooking in your wood-fired oven. We're going to be making it in the Bushman Santorini, and it's a two-stage process. We're going to put together the lasagna first, and then a little bit later on we're going to actually finish it and cook it. So to start, we're going to brown some minced beef, and we're going to brown it and get a nice little bit of char on the meat, and that's going to add another little layer of umami. So I've got my pan here heated up, and it's pretty much smoking hot. A little bit of olive oil, and in with some of my mince. I'm going to pop it back into the oven. And we've got some of these lovely dark bits under there. That's really what we want to see. And as you can see, I haven't put lots in the pan because I don't want to overcrowd it and cool the pan down. The first batch can come out of the oven. And having cooled down the pan a little bit, I'm going to pop it back in the oven just to heat up again. And I've got the oven preheated, so it's well charged up, which means I can keep a little fire going over here on the left-hand side, but that means all of that heat then gets reflected back into the oven. So I'm 1 Mississippi there at the back of the oven, so 300, 350 degrees. We're ready for the second batch, smoking hot again. So the second batch should be done now. We've got some nice colour on there and a great smell. So we're going to use the same pan, olive oil. In my bowl here I've got a mix of peppers, onion, carrot, celery and a little bit of garlic. In with that I'm going to put some thyme and some bay leaves. I'm going to put a top on that and then just cook it all, sweat it down until it's nice and soft. That can happen right in the back of the oven, giving me space at the front to start making a cheese sauce. In my saucepan here I've got 60 grams of butter. We're going to melt that at the front of the oven. And this sauce I'm going to be making out of some mozzarella, some cheddar and some parmesan. My butter's just about melted, so into that I'm going to stir some plain flour to make a roux. I'm going to put this back into the oven and just cook it for a minute or two. And I'm keeping the oven with a little bit of fire licking over to keep it hot enough that I'll be able to bring this sauce up to a simmer and melt all of my cheese. I've cooked the butter and flour together for a couple of minutes. And now I'm going to start adding milk. Just a little bit at a time to start with, so I don't get lumps. I'm going to pop this back into the oven and reheat it before I add the next batch of milk. I'm also going to give my vegetables a little stir around to make sure they're cooking evenly. Ready for some more milk. And I give it a good beating each time I add milk to get rid of any lumps. All of the milk is now in the sauce, and I want to let this cook for a few minutes and it will thicken up. Whilst the sauce is thickening, we're going to put together the ragu so I can get rid of those herbs. The vegetables are now all soft. And into that, we'll add the minced beef, chopped tomato, beef or chicken stock, red wine, salt and pepper. Mix them together a little bit. We're just going to let them bubble together quietly for 20 or 30 minutes to make a ragu, but in this case we want it to be quite a liquid ragu because we're going to cook our pasta from scratch in there, and the pasta is going to absorb some of that liquid. So I'm going to keep the lid on and pop it back in the oven to simmer. The sauce should have thickened by now, and now we've got a nice thick sauce ready to add cheese, a little seasoning and also a little bit of nutmeg. And I've got some mozzarella cheese, which is sweet and creamy, and some Parmesan cheese, which has got that salty bite to it. So that's the cheese sauce ready for assembling the lasagna. That doesn't need to go back in the oven. The heat of the sauce alone will melt the cheese. Our ragu should now be cooked. I've taken the lid off and just let it dehydrate and thicken up a little. So now we can assemble the lasagna. We're going to start with some of the ragu. Doesn't have to be too thick. And a layer of pasta, then more ragu and cheese sauce. More pasta, ragu, cheese sauce, and on top of that, lots of Parmesan cheese, grated. The lasagna is assembled. I could now, of course, set this aside and leave it until later. We're going to cook it straight away. So it's going to go into the oven, and it wants to cook through now relatively gently, 25-30 minutes, with enough heat just to brown up the top towards the end. The lasagna's had 25 minutes in the oven. Should be done by now, but it's always worth just popping the knife in to make sure that the pasta is nice and soft. So there we are, that's a classic Lasagna al Forno cooked in the Bushman Santorini oven. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We produce a new video every week. We'll provide notes on our blog and we'll put a link to that below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.